This is the Dzogchen Semde Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. It is General Leia Organa, early Saturday morning. Come, let us meditate like a Jedi after chanting Dzogchen's take on the Heart of Wisdom Sutra. Before we get going, a quick explanation about the iconography. We see two individuals. One is the color of a cumulus cloud who's depicted as sporting in wanton abandon. This is symbolic of spontaneous awareness of whatever comes up. Her partner is sitting in a rather centered and calm manner. This reminds us of relaxing and releasing as we relax. That's it. Just that simple. Now let's start chanting together. The noble Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, the archetype of love and peace. While practicing the deeply vulnerable, passive, visceral, random, and fleeting Ati Yoga of Prajnaparamita, perfection of wisdom. That is simply noticing in harmony with our inhalations and relaxing in harmony with our exhalations. Looked upon the five skandhas or aggregates and seeing they were empty of self. So we'll stop right there. Let's demystify both selflessness and emptiness. So we'll start with selflessness. As we relax into our exhalation, we are I think it would be better if I actually used a visual aid. So please bear with me while I tap button 9. Okay. We'll begin with mindfulness. Every time we inhale, we are wired by evolution to automatically access the middle bit of our spinal cord, which could be described as the hub of our sympathetic nervous system. It has evolved to help us to notice in a very special way. It has evolved to help us to vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly notice all mind's antics of perception, including seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, smelling, and the like, including the full spectrum of human emotions, intentions, cognitions, recollections, and imaginations or imaginings. All of them. From the external to the internal, from the physical to the mental, from the pleasurable to the painful, from the interesting to the boring, from the glorious to the grotesque. Well, what are we to do with that which we have noticed? That brings us to meditation. Every time we exhale, whether we know it or not, whether we believe it or not, whether we understand it or not, we have evolved to automatically access both the tippy top as well as the very bottom of that same spinal cord, which could be described as the hub of our parasympathetic nervous system, which in turn has evolved to help us to physically relax and mentally release to such a degree during each exhalation that which we noticed during our previous inhalation could fleetingly feel less stressful, less permanent, and less defining. And that's just it. So for instance, have you heard this before? I'm hungry versus this body feels hunger. The statement, I'm hungry, is defining our sense of self. And so as we relax into our exhalation, our efforts to define ourselves fade. Our efforts to label ourselves fade. Our sense of self fades. Just for a moment until the next inhalation when the cycle begins afresh. So there is no mystery behind selflessness. You see, Yang's religious or irreligious patriarchy is so rigid it can't fathom that there are figures of speech, whereas Yin's spiritual matriarchy is flexible enough to see that there are literal statements and figurative statements, that some statements are metaphors and some are similes and some are hyperbolic, as well as some are, and of course, some are literal. So if someone says there is no self and they say it's literal, thank them for their time, but run away. They're going to create more confusion than they're going to clear up. But I also promised you I was going to explain emptiness. So let's do that right now. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever we experienced during our previous inhalation could fleetingly feel as non-graspable as a vast, empty void. So this is straightforward a simile, but a simile is only as effective as it is relatable. So we have to ask the question, what is a real-world example of a non-graspable, vast, empty void? There's probably more than one, but let's just choose an easy example of a non-graspable, vast, empty void. How about the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which although could look tantalizing to the eye, could feel non-graspable to the hand? That's it. All we're saying is that as we relax into our exhalation, things could feel a little bit less graspable. How less graspable? As non-graspable as the sky. That's why one of the images of the two Buddhas in Tantric union is the color of the sky, because it's a useful metaphor of non-graspability. I hope that makes sense. And so we're going to keep going through this text, looking at things that we can notice and our experience of relaxing and releasing. That's it. Here we go from the top of the page. Looked upon the five skandhas or aggregates and seeing they were empty of self. Said to Shariputra, form is emptiness, emptiness is form. Emptiness is not separate from form. Form is not separate from emptiness. Whatever is form is emptiness. Whatever is emptiness is form. The same holds for our feeling, our present impulse, and awareness. So, we talked about the five aggregates. There's nothing mystical or magical or special. The five aggregates, or the five components, are one of many ways of describing human experience. Let's take a deeper dive. Each of us most of us are born with 5 fingers on each hand. So 5 is both 4 and 5 are recurring themes in Buddhism. So let's make it simple. We can notice our body. We can notice feelings of pleasure and pain. We can appraise the intensity of that pleasure and pain, subtle or coarse. We can, in response to that pleasure or pain, we can have a survival instinct. We can respond from our survival instincts. And there are basically 6 impulses that our survival cortex gives us. I call them the 6 F's. They're questions our subconscious asks when viewing anything new. Do we fuck that? Do we feed on that? Do we fight that? Do we flee from that? Do we faint before that? Do we fawn over it? That's it. Super simple. Awareness is our ability to perceive all the other things, to perceive our body, to perceive pleasure and pain, to perceive appraisal of intensity, to perceive our knee-jerk reactions that evolved to keep us alive, but when overused, make life less fulfilling. There you go. Together. Hishari Pudra Dharmas of phenomena all defined by emptiness. And so we see the word Dharma has multiple meanings. Sometimes it means phenomena. Sometimes it means circumstance. Sometimes it means teachings. Not by the dualities or path of destruction, purity or defilement, completeness or deficiency. We have our conventional experience and our ultimate experience. Conventionally, we will notice dualities. That is not an indictment. Ultimately, we relax into emptiness. Every inhalation, we cannot help but notice dualities. Every exhalation, we're wired to effortlessly transcend them, at least a little bit, at least for a moment. Let's continue. Therefore, Sharipudra, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no appraisal, no impulse, and no awareness. So, conventionally, there is form, feeling, appraisal, impulse, and awareness. Ultimately, as we breathe in, there is form, feeling, appraisal, impulse, and awareness. As we breathe out, it could fleetingly feel as if there is no form, no feeling, no appraisal, no impulse, and no awareness. We're going to repeat this paradigm 3 more times. It's the same idea. It doesn't need explaining. Unless you're confused, then don't be shy. Type your question in great detail in the chat in the chat window, because I'm here for you to answer your questions about the philosophies and meditation of Buddhism. Together, let's chant. No eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, and no mind. So we're playing with right now what's called the 3 circles of emptiness. So for instance, the organ of sound, the object of sound, and the awareness of sound. It's just a fun way of saying things aren't as solid or as permanent as they seem. Let's chant. No eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, and no mind. No shape, no sound, no scent, no flavor, no sensation, and no thought. No element of perception from mind to conceptual consciousness. So, we talk often about the dichotomy between proto-Buddhism, yay, and institutional Buddhism, boo. In institutional Buddhism, they use a lot of coercing. They use the threats of punishment and the hope of fear to coerce us to do what they think is right. But when we look at the essence of the Buddha's path of enlightenment, the Eightfold Path of Enlightenment, there is no mention of karma, there is no mention of klesha. It's very, very simple. All it talks about, the only motivating factor is loving kindness. How important is loving kindness? It's mentioned 4 times. Well, 4 times out of 8 is 50%. It's that important. So we don't have to worry about causality and the nuances of metaphysics. They do more harm than good. Let's chant. No causal link from ignorance to old age and death, or end of causal link from ignorance to old age and death. No stress, no source, no relief, no path. No knowledge, no attainment, and no non-attainment. So, as we breathe in, we cannot help but experience stressors. As we breathe out, they feel less intense, less permanent, less defining, and less solid, at least for a moment, until we breathe in again and the cycle begins afresh. No knowledge, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra without attainment. Bodhisattvas take refuge in Prajnaparamita, perfection of wisdom, and live without walls of the mind. We cannot use mere willpower to shift from being rigid to being flexible, but by taking a relaxing break from our habit of actively competing against our own autonomic nervous system, and instead to set some time aside, maybe once every 12 hours or so, to passively cooperate with the awareness and relaxation inherent to our autonomic nervous system. That is the key to transcending the rigidity and fear and superstition and controlling tendencies and elitism and tendency to be cryptic. My mnemonics are failing me. Rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, to transcend our competition, to transcend our cruelty. All this transcendence occurs as a spontaneous fringe benefit of practicing authentic mindfulness and meditation. Let's continue. Whoops, wrong button. Wow. Okay, let's go over here. Here we go. Without walls of the mind, and this without the tyranny of fears, we see through the tyranny of delusion, and attain the mastery of awareness and letting go, that is nirvana. All Buddhas, past, present, and future, also take refuge. Aha. Insert E. All Buddhas, past, present, and future, also take refuge in Prajnaparamita, perfection of wisdom, and realize the unexcelled perfect mastery of love and letting go, that is enlightenment. We should therefore know the great mantra of mind protection. Oopsie, let's try this again. We should therefore know the great mantra of mind protection, of Prajnaparamita, perfection of wisdom, the great knowledge mantra, the unexcelled mantra, the mantra equal to the unequaled. That is none other than noticing in harmony with our inhalation and relaxing in harmony with our exhalation, which heals all suffering and is true, not false. The mantra Prajnaparamita, perfection of wisdom, is thus spoken. Gate pada sam gate bodhisvaha. gone perfectly, and completely gone to liberation. May it be so. May all beings master releasing perfectly, and completely releasing into freedom. So you may wonder why perfectly and releasing are two different colors. Because there is no releasing without observation. Some people think they need to repress everything that is painful and ugly and grotesque. No. The key to mindfulness is being vulnerable to the good, the bad, and the ugly. The external, the internal, the physical, and the mental, the pleasurable, and the painful, the interesting, and the boring, the glorious, and the grotesque. Being vulnerable to it all. That is the key to releasing. Without vulnerability, there can be no release. Having completed our opening recitation, we now switch gears. For the remainder of this morning's live stream, together, let us sit and breathe and notice and relax vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly. The moment you have a specific question about Buddhist meditation or philosophy, do not hesitate to type your question in great detail in the chat windows, for I tend to check for questions about once every 11 minutes or so. Pardon me? Remember, the moment you have a specific question about Buddhist philosophy or meditation, do not hesitate to type your question in great detail in the chat window, for I check for questions about every 10 or 11 minutes or so. Looking for questions? Looking for questions? Remember, every time we inhale, we are already wired to notice whatever comes up, be it external or internal, physical or mental, pleasurable or painful, interesting or boring, glorious or grotesque. As we exhale, we are already wired to physically relax and mentally release. All we got to do is get out of our own way, stop competing against our own autonomic nervous system, and spend just a few minutes passively cooperating with it. You have taken your first step into a much larger world. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. For Meditate Like a Jedi is made possible thanks to the generosity of viewers just like you. In approximately 11 hours, I would very much like to return to lead today's dusk recitation, explanation, and practice of meditating like a Jedi. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always.